Good evening, everyone. I'm Shama Rahman, Marketing Manager for the New York Times live conversation performance series TimesTalks, and our new film series ScreenTimes, which hosts exclusive screenings of the most anticipated and culturally relevant movies, television shows, documentaries, indies, and more. I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's post-screening conversation with director of The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro. Moderating the conversation and all events in our ScreenTimes series is veteran Times contributor and self-proclaimed film fanatic, Logan Hill. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Guillermo del Toro and Logan Hill.
Gracias.
Get a little calisthenics in here tonight, right?
Yes.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming. This is our new series, ScreenTimes. We're so thrilled to be able to have some of our favorite films of the year here and one of the greatest filmmakers alive. And thank you all for watching on Facebook as well. We'll be taking some of your questions, so leave some in the comments. We'll have someone bring them off the internet and to me in person, and then we'll ask you a couple of those from our readers watching.
Absolutely.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah. Now, this wasn't originally the plan to take this time off. I read that originally the plan was you'd be making a movie these days. You're producing things left and right, and you're also maybe going to start rolling into the next film, but you decided not to do that because why?
Oh, many things. I mean, it's been a particularly crazy couple of years for me, and let's say the last 5 years have been very tumultuous, and part of it led to making this movie, self-reflection and all that. And then, honestly, I've been working for a quarter of a century as a filmmaker, 25 years. And every bit of experience that I've got, everything I have to say, everything I have learned or not, led me to this film. And I really felt, as a man, as a person, that I needed to take the time to enjoy this. And be here, and be in the moment, be with the movie.
Have you had that happen in the past where you haven't been in the moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
You only become wise because you screw up. In 2001, I did Devil's Backbone, which is my second favorite movie I've done. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I went right into doing Blade, and I was promoting and post-producing and all of that, and I never enjoyed that movie. And I think the movie also could have been presented better to the world, blah, blah, blah. And, I regret it. I regret it because it's a movie a lot of people don't know. You should know. It is beautiful. and there's a beautiful Criterion edition.
Click on the link.
I did, link. But I didn't want this to happen here. For me, this is my favorite movie I've made.
And that's interesting to me because, a lot of filmmakers I talk to, they say, oh, they're all my children. They would be like picking between my babies.
I've given birth to some ungraceful motherfucker. Some of my children I wouldn't take in a long road trip. So, you make 10 children, a lot of them, you have a tough relationship with. Because you're learning, you're learning. And the curious thing is, everyone teaches you something. I think it's not a real comparison.
Yeah.
You don't have that proximity. You are much more objective than with your kids, I think that the movies, each of them, you feel, oh, this was missed the mark by this much. This one, this. And in a strange way, this is the first movie where I exhale, where I go. It's strange to say it, because I've been so occupied and preoccupied and inhaling and tense in so many other ways. Most of the movies, even the ones I love, have a sense of loss and dread and nostalgia, and this is vital, It's very funny that at age 52, 53, I decided to do something different, and I I decided to do a movie that is full. I wanted it to be like a song.
Yeah.
I wanted people to come out of the theater humming the movie, you know, and humming about cinema. It's a love letter to love and cinema, both. You know?
When you talk about that deep breath, is that before you start work on this project, or the
No,
feeling, or that's when you're done and you
I
know
started working on this project since I was 6. Formally, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I started formally working on the movie, writing and so forth, and designing very early on. But there was a moment before starting to shoot, about 6 months before I started shooting, where I took a moment, like I'm taking now, and I said, what am I going to do different? Why am I making this movie? What do I want as a person? Because for most of the people watching what we do, it's filmography. For you, it's biography. We have a very bad deal with the devil, where we give the devil 3 years of our lives and we got 1 entry on IMDb. That's our deal. For you, it's you know, it occupies a little shelf if you're really dedicated and nice and adorable. For me, is the brackets in which my life is going to be for me. Yeah. You know, and I have this theory that you live for the last 3 minutes of your life. That whatever you do today, tomorrow, the day before, when all those things fall, all that you pretend to be, all that your biography says that you are, when it all falls down, when you're going, you're really going. In those last 3 minutes, you're not doctor, professor, direct, nothing. You're you. And you get a clear sense of what you lived and what you didn't. And I don't want to be repentant in those 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to be happy in those 3 minutes. And this makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you... What changed? What was different about in the lead up to this movie, where you were in a place to...
It's age. Weight, I guess, also. All the factors that you think are not great, and they're really great. Yeah. I'm much happier at 53 than I was at 23. I think the years that the sublime confusion is from 19 to 29. You think you're late for everything, you're a has-been, nothing is happening, there's no opportunity for you, the world is closed, everything's a disaster, you want to die, and then you're 30. And then you go through another reformulation, which the movies I love the most that I've done, each of those, the first 3, have come to me at a moment in which I swear there's a crisis. I'm on the edge of the edge, and I jump, you know? And it's the only way I can jump, by the way. But you will never watch me jump or run. But that happened with Devil's Backbone, which came after a catastrophic experience in 1997 with Mimic, 98. And I thought maybe I'm not for this world. Yeah. You know, maybe I was born too early or too late for my life. Right. You know, and then...
And a lot of that had to do with Harvey Weinstein.
Well, with Miramax Dimension, yeah. It was an experience with Mimic that was absolutely horrible. And that movie saved my life, in a way. Then the same reformulation happened with Pan's Labyrinth. I abandoned everything in big movies. I said, no, I don't want to do any of those. I want to do this crazy little movie in Spain that nobody wanted to finance. But I needed it. And the same happened here. So, you know, I think those are vital. That's biography.
I wonder, I'm curious to know, at this point, or where we are in pop culture, these movies keep getting, the movies that do get made are fewer and fewer and bigger than ever before. Everybody's looking for kind of a little bit of that Guillermo del Toro sauce, right? They want the fantasy, they want the big spectacle, but probably not in the way that you want to make movies often.
Well, no, you see that I've never made a movie, even the bigger ones, whatever. I've never made it in any other terms on my own. Yeah. Even with Mimic, which was the most painful thing I've ever gone through filmically. Yeah. You know, I went in thinking I was going to do a great movie about human identity and insects and, you know, what it is to be human, blah, blah, blah. Little did I know that they wanted Alien 4. So we ended up with Alien 3.5. Yeah. You know, but I've never approached it. I always approach it saying, I want to do this movie. I would croak on the set in order to make this movie, all of them. Yeah. But you get a sense when you have the first meetings with the studios. I've had great collaborations, and in other cases, when you don't do them, something feels wrong. And when something feels wrong at a deep level, you know you're adopting a baby tiger who looks super cute in the beginning, but 6 months later, wants to eat you. You know, and that's what. So you need to be very sure you're making the same movie. Yeah,
because I guess I was just wondering, given the kind of opportunities that must be thrown, the number of people pitching you projects or asking you to attach yourself to something you don't want to do, that you don't have a connection with. Yeah. Is that part of what leads to this? You're talking about this dissatisfaction, or this being on the edge of some kind of crisis?
No.
What is that?
I think my agent may feel that. Right. My agent feels that. I mean, I've said no to things that are enormous, and I've never looked back. You know, the only time I repent I didn't do something was 2007 when Universal, in an incredibly gentle and beautiful manner, said, "Do you want to take over the monster universe?" And they gave me the reins of several properties, and I didn't do it. You know, and I repent. Yeah. So this is confessional moment. I repent. Yeah. That's the only thing. The rest I'm never driving in the freeway and I go. Never. Yeah. I'm happy. Yeah. My mistakes are mistakes that teach you a lot. I think you learn more from failure and mistakes than you learn from success. Success is disorienting. It really is disorienting. And if it happens really early, which fortunately for me it didn't, you know, it can be even more.
Yeah. And how is it keeping everything straight these days? You're doing a whole lot of producing, from Troll Hunters to The Strain. You've got books. You've got television. You've got film projects going on. Do you feel like you were ready to take on all of that at this point?
Well, the reality of, or the truth that most people don't talk about is the natural state of a project is for it not to happen. Right. You know, because media bombards you at such a rate that you read about Fincher doing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Gore Verbinski doing BioShock, and I'm doing God knows what. But we all know that you're going to put a year and a half of your life, develop a screenplay, and most likely it won't happen. Yeah. Most likely you will go and do something else. I've written or co-written 25 screenplays. I've done 10 movies. Yeah. So if you know, and 2 of them required 1.5 to 2 years of design. So if you put it all together, I've been 14 years minimum where I didn't do anything. You know? So what you do is you grab this, it's almost like you match the ebbs and flows of the projects, because not everything happens at the same time. And on an ebb and a flow, you make one thing, and it's not great for social life. Yeah. You can manage.
When you talk about learning from failure, which of those films that didn't get made do you think you learned the most from the process?
Well, at this point, I've designed so much visually with my core team, movies that don't happen, that I tell them it's practice. We're practicing. We're honing our skills in storytelling visually. And you learn a lot. I mean, I designed for 2 years at the Mountains of Madness, storyboarded, keyframed, scouted, planned, broke down in logistics, 2 years in The Hobbit, and what you learn serves you. Because this is the thing that is very funny. Blade 2, Hellboy 2, Pacific Rim, they teach me how to make this. I learn every trick. Yeah. A lot of directors do commercials. I hate commercials. Every time I take a meeting on commercials, it's a disaster. It ends bad. I lose my temper. I go, I don't want to do this. Because they call you there, they call you for who you are, and then they don't want you. And I go, I'm not going to be selling gelatin to babies.
You're really anti-gelatin, I gotta say.
or a deodorant to whatever, I can't do it. And so where I practice, a lot of people get practice with toys, lenses, rigs. Where I get my practice is in the big movies. Yeah. And I learn techniques. The digital extensions that we created for the Reapers on Blade 2, which were a beautiful blend of makeup and digital, those we perfected over Pan's Labyrinth, this and that, and they are perfected in this creature, which is real makeup, real suit and everything, but we created micro expressions in certain areas of the face to keep your eye saying that's not an effect, that's a real creature.
You were talking about other people seeing your films only as sort of filmography. I think sometimes, you see films by filmmakers who love quoting films and love referencing films, and especially happens a lot in genre. Tony Scott, the Times film critic at Telluride, said, "I am dazzled by Mr. Del Toro's ability to mobilize old movie tropes and movie geek scholarship with heart-on-the-sleeve humanism he displays here." So I guess I'm curious, like, I think something a lot of people have keyed into is that this film gives you, doesn't feel like it's got quotation marks around it, doesn't feel like it's just a remake or a reference.
I can't quote. I mean, I can openly admit things, like I say, the window in the apartments is taken from The Red Shoes, from Michael Powell and Pressburger, Or I can say I studied The Harder They Come for the shots Minnelli did in the fairground with the final sequence, and I studied Douglas Sirk, and I can tell you, but it's not a quotation. I think an artist creates two things: mystery, which he or she cannot answer to, is really very deep, but in what the artist can articulate, he or she creates synthesis, which means who are we? We are the synthesis of all our experience. Filmically, we are the synthesis of everything we saw, listened to in life or in cinema or in music, and you distill it and you don't quote it, you reprocess it, synthesizes, and something new comes out. Mm-hmm. I think that is the only artistic act left for the last 800 years. Mm-hmm. Except media comes, new media re-articulates or reposits those questions, blah, blah, blah. But I'm as much harvesting what I know and I have learned of anthropology of the fairy tale as I could be of Minnelli or Cirque or Stanley Donen, and this is important because there are moments in which you make those bets. If the camera had craned down into the cinema and we see Singing in the Rain or Citizen Kane, then I'm completely postmodern. I'm telling you, isn't great cinema great? Great cinema is great and bad cinema is great. Yeah. Sometimes a Sunday movie saves your life. Yeah. This has done with me. Yeah. I've been down, I've been on the edge, and a funny melodrama comes out, and I go, life is okay. So I celebrate in this movie. I celebrate cinema. Yeah. I celebrate it's a specific weight, and the way I try to shoot it in a way that celebrates the old way of shooting. Because the story is so new in many ways. It's so different. And this is if I may, this is hard to articulate in film, but what I do, one of the greatest acts of art is when we go past photographic rendition, we go past the impressionists, the symbolists, and there comes a moment in which we have studied the spiritual power of painting and color. We have said we don't need to be realistic. We are going into this and that. And there's a moment in which Marcel Duchamp signs a urinal and says, I declare it art, right? Or Andy Warhol rephrasing visually the Campbell soup cans and saying, this is my synthesis of that. Or Roy Lichtenstein saying, if you blow it up, if you see it like this, you take a new meaning. And that's what I try to do with what I take, including a genre that most people see as disposable, minor, whatever. I don't care, because for me, fantasy has always been political and always has been meaningful. And in a syncretic act as a Mexican, I fuse my Catholicism, my spiritualism, and my monsters into one. And God knows that the creatures I saw in the Universal films were far less gory than the Catholic imagery in my local church, which has dismemberment, exposed wounds, purpling, bloating, There was a Jesus that was like a forensic book, laid down, and then the priest would say, the body of Christ, and I would go, really? Not today.
I mean, I'm laughing, but it is really, I mean, it does sound like that imagery did really have a deep impact on your sensibility.
On everything. I mean, look, we could talk about any of the movies or this movie all day long. You have, obviously, the fish is a symbol of Christianity and so forth, but also in fairy tales, there is one branch of fairy tales, a minor branch, which is the magical fish. The fish that is taken from the lake and tells the fisherman, I will grant you 3 wishes if you let me go, blah, blah, blah. The notion, which is very Catholic and very fairy tale, of the humble God. The God that comes in the disguise of a humble, is humiliated, tortured, and then reveals itself as a primal God. That's all in the movie.
Yeah.
Now, it's not Catholic. I'm not Catholic. I lapsed a long time ago. And you know, what I want to say, if I can make movies that tell people that it's okay to be imperfect, that it's okay to not belong, that it's okay to belong to the people you love and understand, that's what I try to do. That's what I try to do in Devil's Backbone. That's what I try to do in the big movies, the small movies.
And this film's set in 1962. I want to ask you about a moment. I was thinking about escapism in this film, and there's that moment where Giles, right, is watching his television, and the fire hoses come on, breaking up the civil rights protest.
And the German Shepherds.
The German Shepherds.
And the baton. The same baton he has.
And he says, I can't look at that, I don't want to watch that. And he turns the channel and finds a fantasy he can kind of escape into. Or an author once told me, he said, people sneer at escapism. He said, well, some of us need it more than others.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, to me that there's a secondary theme. If you ever see the movie again, the movie also talks about time, and about the past, and about the future, and about how we don't belong in either of those places, and the now, and Giles is a particularly poignant character about that. Yeah. He aches for his youth. He feels out of place. He tries to go into a place when he was young, when he was an accepted artist. He doesn't want to see the reality. He doesn't want to see it even in his friendship with Elisa. He doesn't want to help. And then he finds out that they have each other. And he comes to say, what do you want me to do? Which is a moment that moves me very much still, And what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that, this is I chose 62 because in the American imagination, that's where the last fairy tale time crystallizes. It's the last Camelot, Until, if you really live there, you would see that if you're the wrong race, the wrong creed, the wrong political affiliation, the wrong sexual preference, it would be a really tough time to live. You wouldn't be barbecuing in the backyard,
right.
And I think it's important to say that is now. Now is when we need to. The movie is not about 62; it's about us now. Yeah.
And does that take on a special, given all this "Make America Great Again," sort of nostalgia?
Well, that nostalgia goes back to that moment. That moment in which was an image of idealistic, an idealized time that was much as a fabrication of Madison Avenue. That's why in 62 it was important for me to show how the media was changing, how the TV was telling you it was Bonanza and Dobie Gillis and Mr. Ed and all these things, and the ads were now photographic, not renditions in painting. The billboards are everywhere, blah 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 blah, jet fin cars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is such a love story, right? I mean, that is one of the most different things about this film from your work before. You've said you always wanted to do an amphibian man romance with a human. You've also said this is your most personal film ever. So it's a love story and it's your most personal film ever. How do those two go together?
I think, and look, the three most personal are Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, and this one. Yeah. They explore different sides, but for me, what was important here is can we make a Beauty and the Beast sort of story in which Beauty is not a princess in a pedestal, where she dreams of water, makes her eggs in water, masturbates in water, shines her shoes, and goes to work. And she doesn't sing, she's not a perfect, pure, like innocent. It's a real person. Somebody that you can find sitting next to you. She doesn't look like a perfume commercial model. She can be sitting next to you in the bus stop, and it's more real. And the beast doesn't transform into a boring damn prince.
Right.
You know? And because I think when we think of love and people think of transformation, that's the most horrible trick romantic love stories have ever played on us. Love is understanding, not transformation.
Yeah.
And if you find somebody that doesn't understand you, at whichever point in your life, run. Because, is love them as they are or leave them be. Very simple. And that's why the creature eats the goddamn cat.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna eat more cats. And that's what it does.
Yeah.
It eats cats. And I think these are things that were in play in this.
Yeah. I'm going to take a question from our Facebook commenters. Thank you for submitting these. Hey, Ricardo from Facebook asks, how does Hollywood move forward from stereotyping its diverse directors and actors? That's a big question.
Oh, gee.
Lord.
I don't know. I think that what I believe is, it's always been a beautiful math balance between art, commerce, money, and creation. And I think that we are learning. The one thing that we're learning is that if you let the voice of the storytellers come through, genuinely, people go to the movies. They do. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but that's always. You're going to have a toss of a coin on a $200 million movie about spaceships that came out from beneath Uranus, whatever, and invaded Earth, as you're going to have with a quirky little movie. Who knows if they're going to show up, but the one thing you can do is, can people tell the stories that matter to them?
Yeah.
And then other people will find that they matter to them too.
Yeah. We'll take one more from Facebook. This is from Ignacio. He says, what was the hardest part of making this film? Was it the budget?
Well, many things. Two things come to mind. One was tonally. The movie is such a difficult act because it needs to work as a comedy, as a musical, as a melodrama, as a spy movie, as a thriller, as an amphibian man love story, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And if one of them is dangerous, all of them combined is really, really difficult because your decisions are in tone, musically, movement of camera, style of light needs to work across the board for all those things. Acting style needs to work across the board. Delivery, all the actors need to exist in the same movie, which is a mixture of all those things. That's really, really hard. But that's something that maybe is harder to know why it's hard. It's a very inside baseball thing, maybe. The budget, which a lot of people still don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't.
It's
amazing.
A lot of people still say, tell me the truth. They take me to lunch. Come on, it costed more. I go, no, it didn't. It actually costed less. The official budget is $19.5 million. For a
That's
movie,
19, not 90.
Yeah, for a movie that looks like it costed 60 or 70. But I can come clean and say it's not 19.5, it's 19.3. Because as of last week, we were over $100 and something thousand in the black.
Wow.
We gave change. we had change for the studio. So it's something that I learned with Alejandro Iñárritu. Alfonso Cuarón and I produced a movie for him called Beautiful, and it was a big movie. It was a big movie, and I saw where he used the budget, but the scale of the movie was, relative to the budget. And then he said, I'm going to do a smaller one by quite a bit. And he went and did Birdman, which looks much bigger. And part of me, that was part of what I thought, because I did Crimson Peak, which I adore, but for 55. And that forced the studio's hand to market it broader as a horror film, which it wasn't. Right. It was a very strange Gothic romance. And I learned with the horrible heartbreak that causes you, because then the movies are like children. The pain you feel when they don't reach the audience, it is profound and personal and really hard to shake. You don't sail into the next one. You are beaten and you take it really, really hard. And I said, this movie, I'm gonna go to the studio and say, this is what it is. This is what happens. I presented it to Searchlight in 2014, exactly as you see it. And I said, how much? I said, black and white. And they said, black and white, 16.5, color, 19.5. I go, color it is. But now we can market it, they can market it beautifully for what it is. Yeah. With a French song and a beautiful poster by James Jean. You don't open with, in a world. You know, the only thing standing between the creature and us is her. No, it would be Shannon. It's him. No.
When you talk about those unusual moments, you were saying before, there's the question of tones. There's some very difficult things you pull off here. Obviously, a couple of them are there's actual sexual desire in this film. There's a lot of fantasies that ignore that part of life entirely, especially when a monster is involved. Or it's subtext. It's not actually getting in the tub. When you look at a scene like that, or the dance sequences, and being able to pull off those kinds of scenes without it becoming pastiche, without it becoming too funny or
self-reflective, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see cuts and you thought, no, this cut doesn't work?
No,
really...
look, what you do, I'll try to explain that. To me, it was not a movie about one love story. It was a movie about a lot of love stories. Everybody was in love with someone in some way. And it was about, can they resolve them or not? And the only time I thought the sex was a little sick was between Ken and Barbie, when he was trying to suffocate her.
Yeah.
No, that's because it
with
was
the bloody finger.
With the bloody finger.
Yeah.
That's the only time I went. No. But the rest for me, the beauty is that I find any of those expressions is beautiful, and I thought if the creature was an existing creature, if it was an animal, but for me it's a river god. It's an elemental, beautiful creature that reminds her of her own essence, as we discover in the film as it goes through. And to me, the beauty was, can I create that moment? Can we earn it? And we moved the scene 3 pages early, 2 pages later, and it didn't work. We found exactly where it worked. And then we spent, this is a movie that was shot fast for my standards, and I spent almost half a day shooting the 2 shots of that sequence and lighting it exactly as I needed it. If you ever see it again, we tried it, height of the lens, how fast the dolly pushed, what lens it was, exactly where the shadows fall, to make it as much of a painting. Exactly when we go to the reverse for her, half her face is in shadow with a very small bounce that allows you to see her. But it's literally, if you see too clear one detail, it breaks. It's like introducing the creature. I knew that the real introduction of the creature was going to be this, coming out of the water with the lens right at the level of the water, and you saw it blink. And in that moment, you're in, because it's living. I gave you micro gestures in those eyes, and you went, oh, it's a living creature. And then if we do our things well, the last third of the movie, you don't even think about it as a creature. Right. It's just the main lead. And the difficulty is to direct Doug and to work with Doug beautifully if there is any motion he does that reminds you that he's human, you excise it. There was a moment when they meet in the cinema where he said, music, and she said, no music, cinema. And the creature went like this. And I cut it, because it would never do that. Yeah. It would never learn that, a square. Yeah. And immediately it looked human. And I cut it. And it's a better scene without it. But I'm trying to tell you, that's the type of thing you gotta be constantly watching for.
We're already over our time, which is terrible.
Who cares? Who's gonna kick a couple hundred angry New Yorkers out of a theater? Who? Let's give it 5 more.
Yeah, we'll do 5 more. I mean, I'm curious. A question I have is, if this is your most satisfying film, this is your favorite film, right?
Yeah.
Then how does that change? What do you take from this experience going forward?
I don't know. That's why I'm taking a sabbatical. If I had the answer, I would be working.
Yeah.
I know that I had a film and I asked to postpone and to say, can you give me time because I need to think.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that change when you know, for a director, you get the same feedback that a painter or a sculptor. You do. It takes longer. I always say that ours are accidents in slow motion. You know, very slowly you break your teeth, you gouge your eye, the goddamn airbag deploys finally. You know, but it takes time for you to know how you landed in this particular car crash. And I feel really good right now, and I feel it's a very intimate feeling. It's not about just audience or this or that. Is the most intimate material and sculptor, a paint and brush and painter. You know, there is a real intimacy, and you don't want to break it. You don't know what you're gonna do next. It's truly a moment to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's open-ended.
Yeah. I'm on a diet. Horrible, by the way. I'm drinking shakes out of a little powder bag.
Oh, that's awful. When I was wondering, when you've talked about how there's sort of a monster cosmology in your mind, that different monsters mean different things. Like you mentioned the role of the fish as a sort of figure that speaks. You know,
The other.
The other. Yeah.
But look, for me, the only monstrosity that is possible to see is in the human heart. You know, and the only possible dialectic we create through ideology, where the only reason we can tell a story with good guys and bad guys is because one character there believes in ideology that makes the other the other. Because if you don't believe in the other, you cannot beat somebody else. You cannot curse somebody else. You cannot hate somebody else. Because truly, like a fortune cookie, if you understand, you love immediately. You know, that's but we have we are in a social discourse that is so heated that we need scapegoats in a way. You know, that because scapegoats absolve you. You don't have to do anything. It's their fault. Oh, that's why I'm living a horrible life. They are to be blamed, whoever they can be. And it's very tempting, it's very seductive. It's very seductive, and if it comes with great uniforms, you know what happens. Yeah. You know? You know, it can go really wrong really fast. Because I've been making movies, if you see all my movies since the first one to now, the basic theme is all the same. I don't know what's going to happen, but all we have is each other. And if somebody doesn't believe that, I'm sorry, then there is a dialectic to be addressed. But it is more likely than not is that, you know, the reason why we are taught socially to hate each other is to distract us from the real things that are rotten, which are structural. And the more you hate the straw man, the less you look at the real villains, you know? And it's always somebody above. I mean, that's why there's Strickland, maybe a terrible character, a horrible guy, a terrible, decent man, but I wanted to show the person above him.
I was surprised. I saw a note, it might have been in the press package or something, where you were saying that you identify with him in some way.
I do, because I've had that talk with studio heads.
Yeah.
Or financiers, you know, and mind you, I've had great talks.
Right.
And I've had great relationships. And the difference is when a studio head or a monetary partner sees you for all you are and doesn't reduce you to one sentence, which is what ideology does. You know, and that happens with genre movies a lot. Oh, it's fantasy. Oh, it's comedy. It's not, you know, that happens in life. with your origin, with your gender, with your age, with your everything, people can dismiss you or they can see you. That's why, to me, the greatest act of love is to see somebody in the full dimension. And that's why I didn't want her to talk or him to talk. Because I wanted to prove in the way we structured the screenplay that the characters with the power of speech had huge problems communicating. And the ones that didn't, connected. Because words at this stage in our lives lie a lot. But if you can see a person for exactly who that person is, that's why she says, every time he sees me, and when he sees me, he doesn't know I'm incomplete. Yeah. If we can give each other the chance to be imperfect and find the love, I think there's hope that we may survive this age we are in, which is the terrible twos of humanity. We're tossing the milk and throwing the pudding, and in a tantrum. Maybe if we wake up and learn that love is not a silly thing that is in songs in the radio, but that is the most powerful, malleable, shapeless form in the universe, maybe we'll get to be teenagers. Maybe.
And if you've talked about this film as your sort of love letter to cinema, at a time like this, when you go on Twitter, everybody's screaming at each other, not listening to each other at all, everyone's sort of separated in their bubbles, is there a different function that cinema can provide?
I think every single thing we have has a different function that it's providing. I went into Twitter for the first time 2 years ago, and except for political views, which may be unpopular, every single tweet I've made is to talk about things I love. Things that you should see, watch, listen, read, to call attention on other people that are doing great work. In cinema, I think that there is, look, cinema is like religion. If you're a Buddhist, I'm a Catholic, you're a Christian, I'm a Muslim, we may not agree on which movie contains the essence of God. But as long as we find it, you find it and I find it, that's great. The thing that I find we are in a trap right now, it's a semantic trap, it's a dialectic trap, it's a language trap, is that we've come to regard and talk about cinema exclusively in the most, not pejorative, but in the terms that related to most other mediums, story and character, which can, are inherited from, in many ways, Aristotelian structure and blah, blah, blah. And we are fascinated and addicted in a beautiful way to long arc, TV or cable, whatever you want to call it, and it's beautiful because the long arc allows you for a content that is almost literary, because you can go up and down. Is Swan, is in search of the lost time. You can go into long narratives, get to know that character. The character betrays you, recuperates you, redeems, fails, blah, blah, blah. And the characters are great too. But it's not generating mythological size images. It is not. I'm as addicted as you are to any series, and I cannot quote 4 images in any of the great series with the specific weight that Gene Kelly would have holding the lamppost, or Chaplin going through the machine, or the elevators regurgitating blood in The Shining, or any of those specific images of loneliness, Travis Bickle walking down Times Square, you name it. There are specific mythological weight images that are generated in a narrative that has nothing to do with dramaturgy and character, that is submerged in the real mystery of what is real cinema. And I think we should be talking about movies in formal terms to help us read those paintings again beyond the content. If we see the Mona Lisa and we only read the character and the story, we say it's a lady looking at us and smiling. But why is it great? Can we talk about the sfumato and the corners of her smile that makes the smile mysterious? Can we talk about her half turning to us instead of a profile or a frontal, which is an anomaly? Can we talk about the way he plays with depth? Can we talk about the transparencies that he uses to paint her? Can we talk about those things? Because then we read them And I think there is so much more to read in cinema than we're reading right now. And
we should make this an all-nighter. I wish we could. But we were just going to have you back again.
Let's do it.
We'll get, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.